let's talk about Kevin Federline, guys. Let's talk about Kevin Federline. And the reason why I want to talk about this guy, for those of you guys who don't know, this is the, I want to say baby father, that sounds horrible, but the father of Britney Spears' children, Kevin Federline. And there's been a lot being said about this guy. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, he was just an innocent, not very smart person involved, and you know, it was his lawyer who was in cahoots with James, who's the problem, and Kevin was just following his lawyer. Now, I get why some people want to be understanding towards him, in the sense that maybe he wasn't this big, intelligent, smart, you know, orchestrator like the likes of James Spears. But I don't like this narrative where we're letting Kevin Federline off, because let's remember that this is the man who was deemed more capable of looking after the children than Britney was. So for people to be overlooking his intelligence, his intelligence, or his lack of activity in all of this is very problematic for me, because again, what about the children? This is the question I always have in these situations. What about the children? What about the children? Because as we also know, one of Britney's sons actually has a restraining order out on James Spears, the one who by the way was the conservator, who was the one who was watching what was going on the visits between Britney and her children and Kevin, and who was the one who had the right to stop Britney's visit with her own child whenever he fancied to do that. Can we talk about that part? No, we don't want to talk about that part. So for me, if we're gonna critique Britney as a mother so much, let's critique Kevin as a father. Because as a father, right, I don't care who his lawyer is, and I don't care what his lawyers told him. You are the father of that child. That is not Mark Kaplan's child. That is not even James Spears' children, sorry. They're not even James Spears' children. Those are you Kevin Federline, and you Britney Spears' children. When you guys die and go to heaven, who's God going to look at and say, these are the parents of these children? You're not going to go, oh, by the way, Kevin, you just step to the side. I'm going to talk to Mark instead. I'm going to talk to Mark because he was the lawyer and you should listen to him. Get out of here. And even this whole narrative of, oh, well, Kevin wanted to make sure that everything was going to be paid off. Like, I'm sick of hearing people talking about making sure things are paid off to do with Britney Spears. This woman has made so much money, and this woman, all she fought for was her children. Half the reason she went along with all this stuff is because James kept dangling her children as a carrot to try and stop her, to try and keep her in this conservatorship, in this prison, right? And you think she was not going to look after her children. And then you guys want to be worried about if the children were going to have enough money paid for them and stuff. That's ridiculous. I don't want to hear that. Like, that for me is ridiculous. I think that type of thinking is exactly what allows James Spears and people like him to do what they do. And people like Kevin, who is a parent who needs to also take accountability for his children. Because again, once again, we're in a situation where no one wants to take accountability for the children involved. And right now, the only person really wanting to take accountability is Britney. Explain that to me. I'm going to look at my notes, right? So, Sam Lofty have obviously come up again, and unfortunately, I was not able to find the interview that Sam Lofty did with, well, actually, we're going to come back to Sam Lofty. I'm still doing more research into him and his Twitter and everything, but and this is another important thing about Kevin Federline I want to point out. Sam Lofty talked about him. He's a stoner, good dad, good guy, right? Apparently that's what he said, right? And I don't know when he said he was a stoner, if he meant that literally or not literally. I don't know if he just meant that he's a stoner in terms of the vibe that he gives off or what he meant, but that's what he said, right? And there's an issue with that for me, because the issue with that is the fact that Kevin, let's say Kevin, he's saying he means that literally. So Kevin is a stoner. James Spears is known to be an alcoholic, right? And so these two people were more trusted with Britney's children than Britney, who was not taking any type of enhancing anything, no alcohol, no drugs or anything other than the lithium her father was forcing her to take. And she's the one we're concerned about for the children. Somebody explain that to me. And why am I pointing this out, guys? For the same reason that I always point stuff out, guys, to prove that this is an industry-wide issue, guys. so many people have to be involved for this stuff for people to get away with this stuff. Because if this was an average person, if this was the average person, this one subject of looking after the children would never turn out this way. It would never. It would never. And so I just want to say in this video that Kevin, we're not going to overlook Kevin at all. You are a parent. You brought these 2 children into this world. You've had 2 now. The first one, maybe you didn't know what's going to happen. This is what I always say. When you have children, the first one, maybe you didn't know what to expect, right? No one knows what to expect. And this is not me criticizing parenting, by the way. This is me criticizing the level of accountability and responsibility that people are taking for their actions. Those 2 children did not choose to be here. Those 2 children were brought into this world by 2 consenting adults. This is not Mary and Jesus. God did not just plant those children in Brittany's stomach out of nowhere. No, he did not. Those 2 adult people chose to sleep together. And let me tell you something. People don't get impregnated by accident. You don't fall into a woman, and you certainly don't fall into impregnating her. I can tell you that much for free. Okay? So let's just backtrack off of this. Like, let's be understanding. Kevin just listened to the Kevin didn't need to listen to the lawyers. Kevin should have been fighting for his children. Kevin should have been standing up as their father, as their dad, and getting in the way. Because do you know what? Is anybody thinking about how this affects the boys, like Brittany's sons, to see their dad just go along with everything when the sons themselves, or at least one of them, has come out and said, you know, that one of them said he wanted his grandfather to go die. This is James Spears, the one who's been entrusted with everything over Brittany. Can we make that make sense, guys? Can we use logic? Can we use our brains that God gave us? Oh, wait, we don't want to. Right. Because why? Because we live in a society where today no one is taking accountability for the children anymore. That's why children are becoming so depressed at such a young age. That's why things are getting crazy. Because guess why? Because no one wants to take accountability. As soon as a child turns out well, they did the same thing with oh my gosh. When I heard this, I was fuming. When I heard that they were basically trying to say that when Brittany's son didn't want anything to do with the granddad, they tried to say he was, what was it? It was just teenage angst, is the phrase I heard. This is what these people do. Oh, now that he's misbehaving, it's him going through teenage angst. Not all the trauma he's gone through with his mum. Not the fact that he is being controlled by his alcoholic grandfather who is drugging his mother. And who is controlling the lawyer of his dad who isn't doing anything. I would find that quite traumatizing if it was me, mate. I would. And guess what? I think those children would have been better off with Brittany. Yeah. In fact, even with her on lithium, because she was still doing all her tours and everything, to the point where even her team that was working with her were concerned about her state because of how tired she was, being so overworked. Yeah. Anyway, a lot of my videos are going to sound very angry about this Brittany stuff because everything that I've been seeing has just been getting me to this level of anger where I'm like, as I've been doing this research, guys, I swear down, I couldn't even sleep. I was like, I'm going to have to film these videos ASAP because now I'm like, I'm so mad at everything that's happening. Anyway, so that's what's happening with Kevin. So no, I'm not going to overlook Kevin. No, I'm not going to say he's a good dad, he's a good guy. No, he's not. Because if he was, he should have been there fighting for his children to see the mum. He should have been there, not letting some lawyer who's a good friend of Jamie speak on his behalf. That's ridiculous. I don't care. I don't care. You take responsibility. You take responsibility. There are people out there in the world. You've got single parents, right, with more children than that, who are making it work even better, who are feeding those children every single day and working multiple jobs. And they're not making excuses saying, oh, I needed to listen to the lawyer so to make sure that the costs were covered for looking after the kids. Get the flip out of here, mate. Go to Walmart, go to Walgreens, go to Target, get yourself 10 jobs if you have to. And do what you need to do like other people do in the world whose baby mother isn't Britney Spears. And on that note, I'll see you guys in my next one.